Hello students, welcome to the answer writing program. So today we will be discussing these two topics from GS2 Polity. First topic is about the state, executives and legislature. Second is administration of UTs. So let's see all the three questions. Take a glance. First question is related to discretionary power of the governor. The second is related to the issues related to the office of governor in India. And the third question is related to the providing statehood to Delhi. So let's start with the first question. What are the discretionary powers of the governor? This is the first demand. Explain the rationale behind the discretionary power of the governor. This is the second demand. So, what are the discretionary power of the governor? Where they are mentioned in the constitution? What are the articles related to that? So, you should be aware of all these information. So, in introduction, how you can start with that what are the governor's discretionary power means the meaning, definition. Like the governor as the constitutional head of the state and according to the constitution also he has to act on the accordance on the aid and advice of the council of ministers, but in certain cases he can use his own discretion to take the decisions. So based on that he has two types of discretion. The first is about the constitutional discretion and the second is about the situational discretion. So the constitution discretion is the discretion which is mentioned in the constitution itself. It means the constitution is giving the powers to use the discretion to the governor. The second is about the situational. In the cases of the exigencies, emergencies and with time and with conventions only these situational discretions are being made. So in from article 153 to 162 the provisions are there with respect to the governor, the powers of the governor, appointment of the governor, tenure and the eligibility criteria, etc. And in 163 article, the discretionary power, this has the provision with respect to the discretion of the governor that he must act on the aid and advice of the council of ministers except in such cases where he can use his own discretion. So this discretion has the reference in 163 article number. So this way you can start the introduction. Now let's see the main body part about the constitutional discretion. So the constitution provides some ways in which he can use his own discretion. Very first thing is when he can use his discretion to reserve the bill for the state legislative assemblies bills for the consideration of the president. It means if he thinks that this bill should be reserved for the consideration of the president, so he can reserve that bill. He will not give the assent to that bill. Instead, he gives to the president for his assent, for his consideration. Then second is about he can use his own discretion according to the constitution when he is giving the recommendation for the imposition of the president rule in the state. The third one is related to when means he can use his discretion when he is functioning as an administrator for the adjoining duty. Next is about that he can use his discretion in determining the amount payable by the government of MATM, Mizoram, Meghalaya, Assam and Tripura to an autonomous tribal district council like as an royalty for the minerals extraction. So he can use his discretion to determine that what amount these governments will pay to the tribal district councils. Next is about the fifth discretion is related to when he wants to seek information related to the affairs in the state from the chief minister. He can again use his own discretion. Next comes the situational discretion, which is not mentioned in the constitution, but accordingly with the time, with the conventions, these discretions are being there with the governors. So he can use his own discretion, means he can take the decision without the aid and advice of the council of minister in these three cases. First case is about he can appoint any other person as the chief minister in two cases. When there is a hung assembly, it means when there is no clear candidate for the chief minister, when there is no clear majority to make the government. So in the case of hung assembly, he can ask any other person to become the CM, then he can prove the confidence or the majority in the house. And second, when CM suddenly dies while being as an incumbent in the office, if he suddenly dies and no certain candidate is there for the next CM, so he can take any other person as the CM. So he can appoint the new chief minister. Next is about he can dismiss the council of minister when they cannot prove the confidence in the house. The third is about he can dissolve the assembly if council of minister has lost its majority in the house. It means in the state legislative assemblies. So these are some situational discretion. Now coming to the second body part, that is rationale behind the discretion. Means what are the reasons, why at first point, what is the rationale behind providing these discretions to the governor, either by the constitution or by some situational discretions. So the very first thing is about that the governor, being the constitutional head of the state, he has the responsibility to safeguard the constitutional principles. Like as in the case we have already discussed, that he can reserve the bill for the consideration of president. It means he can act as the safeguard against the potential abuse of power by the elected representatives. So he can uphold the constitutional values, the provisions or the philosophies behind the constitution, so that the constitutional machinery could not be break down and there would be no political instability and there would not be any unconstitutional provisions in the acts or in the laws can be passed. So he can reserve the bill for the consideration of the president, and also he can uphold the constitutional values. Second, in the case of the crisis management, like as we have already seen that there can be the cases when there is no clear majority in the house, there is no clear candidate for the CM, so he can take the swift decision in that case to ensure the political stability in the house or for the effective governance. Next is about the caretaker role during the transitions or the president rule. When there is a president rule imposed in the state, so governor has the responsibility to take out the administrative provisions in the state. The next is link between the union government and the state government. So he can act as an advisory role to the president. He can seek the information from the chief minister and gives the information related to the affairs of the state to the president, so that whatever the whereabouts and the know in the state can be informed to the at the central level, and these can be taken as an effective measure for the national policy making. So these are some rationales behind the discretion of the governor. Finally, coming to the conclusion. So what you can write in the conclusion, because in the recent times also we have seen that these discretionary powers are being misused majorly in the favor of the central government. So you can write that there are some challenges attached or associated with these discretionary powers, but you can also write just in a single line or the two lines about the way forward also, that yes, there are certain challenges that are associated with the discretionary powers, but we can seek the recommendation of Panchi Commission, or you can write about first ARC, second ARC, or anything with respect to Sarkariya commissions also. So we are quoting Panchi Commission recommendation that we need to narrow the discretion of the governor. Means we need to narrow down the interpretation about the discretionary powers of the governor as associated in 163 article number. So this way our first question is completed. Let's see the model answer. Starting with the part 6, article 163, who is providing the discretionary power to the governor, then discretionary power, constitutional discretion, situational discretion, then the rationale, finally coming to the conclusion. Okay, now let's move on to the next question. Moving on to the second question, what are the issues related to the office of governor in India, and explain the suggestions given by the various committees to tackle the issues. So there are two demands in the question. So in introduction, what you can write? You can write some overview with respect to the appointment of governor, that is via president, which is mentioned in article 155 and 156. You can also write that government is being appointed by the president during the pleasure of president. And also there are articles with respect to 153 to 162 which tells about the governor, that there shall be the governor, appointment, eligibility criteria, tenure, etc. There are these provisions mentioned in the constitution. So in introduction you can write all these things. Moving on to the body part, we need to write down the issues in the governor's office. So what are the various issues? First issue is related to appointment, then about the removal or his tenure, then discretionary power, then his partisanship role, then how he acts just as a mere rubber stamp. Then there are certain conflicts with respect to the state government and the governor appointed by the central government. So with respect to the appointments, so it is said that the governor is appointed as that person only who is being loyal or faithful to the political parties throughout their political tenure. So whosoever person shall be faithful or the loyal to the political parties or the majority political parties, they are being appointed as the governor in their retirement age. So these we can call as the rehabilitative appointments. Again, there are certain issues with respect to the arbitrary removal even before their expiry of the tenure. Like when any majority government comes at the center, they remove the governors from the state which are not from their parties. So again there are the concerns with respect to the removal. The third is related to the misuse of the discretionary power. As we have already discussed in the first question that there are certain discretionary powers associated with the governor, so there are being misused at sometimes, like appointment the majority leader as the CM, whom to call the first so that they can prove their confidence motion or they can prove their majority. So all the politics are associated here with respect to the misuse of this discretionary power, that whom to call and in what order they have to call on the floor of the house so as to prove the majority. Then misuse of the discretionary of the power, like article 356, this is being misused multiple times, many a times in the favor of the central government and putting the president rule in the state, even when there are not the constitutional machinery breakdown is happened. Next comes about the partisanship role. Governor is appointed as the constitutional head of the state, so he should act in the non-partisanship spirit. But in certain cases we have seen that he supports the government at the center, he violates the model code of conduct, so he acts in the partisanship way. Next, there are the certain issues with respect to governor, because he just acts as a mere rubber stamp, because every time he has to act on the aid and advice of the Council of Minister. Next is about the state government and the governor conflict. In the recent times, also in the current affair, day to day, everywhere, we are just seeing that there are the conflicts with respect to the state government and governor. Like recently we have seen with respect to the Tamil Nadu governor, what he has done, he has skipped certain portions from the governor's address while telling about the state government's policy. So he does not have any mandate to do that. But because there are the conflicts, tussles going on, constantly tussles, persistent obstacles or the issues are going on, so that is why governors are doing that. Second thing also, they withheld the assent or they delay the assent to the bills passed by the state legislative assembly. Example, in the Tamil Nadu state legislative assembly, they have passed the resolution to release the convicts related to the assassination of Rajiv Gandhi, but the governor has delayed in giving that assent to the resolution. So there are ongoing conflicts between the state government and the governor. So these are some issues with respect to the governor's office. Moving on to the body parts, that what are the various reforms given by the different committees with respect to the office of governor. So the very first is about the first ARC, Administrative Reforms Commission. What they suggested with respect to governor is that non-partisan person who has spent their lives in the public welfare or the public life, they should be appointed as the governor. Second is about the Panchi Commission. They have talked about the removal process. So they said that governor should be he should be given the fixed 5-term tenure, so that not on the whims of the fancies of the central government he can be removed arbitrarily. So there should be provided 5 years fixed tenure, and we can also come up with the process of the impeachment process. As we impeach the president, we can also impeach the governor. Next is about the second ARC. He has given the recommendation with respect to the discretionary powers of the governor, that we should come up with some guidelines from the interstate council. Means interstate councils should come up with some guidelines that how that this governor can use their discretionary powers. Next is about the Sarkaria Commission. Sarkaria Commission has talked about like discretionary power of the president rule, which is with the governor. So what Sarkaria Commission has said in this particular regard is that the imposition of the Article 356 or the invoke Article 356 should be as a last resort, that too when there is the political crisis or when there is a constitutional machinery breakdown, means non-compliance to the constitution by the state legislative assembly. Only few times, like only the few things should be there when they can impose Article 356, and it should be the last resort. It should not use haphazardly or the arbitrarily whenever they feel that the state government is against them, against the central government, just put 356. No, it should not use like this. So these are the proposed reforms by the various committees. Next is about the conclusion. What you can write in the conclusion? You can write about the summary, about the role of the governor, and also you can write something related to the Constituent Assembly debate, that we need to foster the effective coordination between the state government and the governor for the successful functioning of the India's federal structure. You can also write about the B.R. Ambedkar observation. He said that the governor has no role in this constitutional setup except to act on the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers. So he should act as a bridge between the union government and the state government, rather than acting as an agent of the central government, because he is also the constitutional head of the state. So he should have these responsibilities. So this was our second question. Let's see the model answer. Model answer starting about the 155 and 156 article of the Constitution, then issues, then reforms, finally coming up with the conclusion that governor should act as a linchpin between the center and the state. Okay, so moving on to the third question, critically analyze the significance of providing statehood to Delhi. So we need to write down some arguments in the favor of providing statehood to Delhi, arguments in against the providing statehood to Delhi. So this is the question, and finally what we can do, we can write the way forward, that what we can do more to deal with this matter. So in introduction, you can write some background with respect to this statehood to Delhi, that S. Balakrishnan Committee was set up to look into the provisions for providing statehood to Delhi, and they have come up with some recommendations in 1987. On the basis of that, government has come up with 69th Constitutional Amendment Act in 1991, which provides for the 239AA article, and these have instituted three things. Three institutions they have provided. The first one is about Government of NCT of Delhi, Legislative Assembly, and Council of Ministers. So this Legislative Assembly can deal with the matters, or they can make laws which is there in the state list or the concurrent list, except in the matters pertaining to three things. First is about law and order, then land, then police. So because Delhi government now will not have the authority to deal with these three things like law and order, which is under the union government, they do not have the power to make the laws on that. They do not have the authority to deal with these matter. So after this amendment, now Delhi is in somewhere middle of being the status of UT and the full-fledged statehood. Because the state legislature assemblies in any other state, if we can see that Haryana, Punjab, Uttar Pradesh, they can deal with any of the matter with respect to these things as well. But Delhi government cannot deal with these matters. With respect to land, DDA is there, Delhi Development Authority. Again, it is under the Ministry of Home Affairs. Urban local bodies or also MCD, these are under the union government. They do not directly report to the state government, Delhi government. So that is why there are some conflicts, there are persistent conflicts going on between the Delhi government and the central government, and about the provisions of the power distribution and providing the full statehood to Delhi as well. So these are some issues with respect to statehood status to Delhi. Now let's move on to the body part. So what will happen if we provide statehood to Delhi? Like, what will be the significance? As we have already discussed that there are some provisions, there are some conflicts between these two things, like the central government and the Delhi government. Like central government, they have the regulations of MCD. They can do law and order, police and land. Like Delhi government has the body known as PWD. This have the parallel role with the MCD as well. These bodies are also included in for the maintenance of the schools, for the provisions of car parkings, parks, healthcare, etc. And again, somewhere these have also the provisions. So there are the ongoing conflicts between which authority will do what. So there are the issues with respect to the responsibilities, with respect to the devolution of powers, etc. So if we give the statehood to Delhi, all these conflicts will be resolved, because the local bodies will also directly report to the Delhi government, and there will be increased accountability as well, because they have to directly deal with the people, so they can do the more welfare for the people. Better governance would be there. No parallel bodies for that, no parallel governance for that. Like for the same matter or for the different matter, there are multiple bodies which are doing the governance thing. This results into the inefficiencies in the governance. Next is about administrative authorities and autonomies. Like we have already discussed, the law and order, police, land, they are not under the Delhi police. So with respect to the provisions of housing, infrastructural development, traffic, pollution, etc., Delhi government cannot take much efforts for that. So if they'll get the full statehood, they can deal in the more effective way. Next is about the fiscal autonomy. Every time there are the conflicts with respect to the fiscal devolution also, like the finances, whatever the Delhi government is getting from the central government, they are less. They cannot raise their finances too much also, because they have limited power. So if we'll provide the statehood, all these issues may be resolved. So this is the significance of providing the statehood to Delhi. Next, coming into the issues with respect to the statehood. Like first are the security challenges. The major institutions like the parliament, president estate, embassies, these are there in the Delhi. So, and RAW and IB, these are the main central government agencies who provide the security protection to these major institutions as well. So we cannot take a chance to give all this authority to some state government instead of the central government or the federal government. And also second thing is about like international diplomacy. Like international diplomats or the international missions are there in the Delhi. International missions happens in the Delhi, like the summits happens in Delhi. So all these provisions are being implemented by the central government or the federal government for their smooth execution and planning also for these events. So these are under the central government responsibility. We cannot just give it away to some state government to handle these international issues. Next is about this national capital, like Delhi is for the whole of India. This is the national capital of India. This is not just for any state. So this is national capital for all of the residents, not for only those who live in that particular city or the city state. like Delhi. So if we give this Delhi to some state, like as the authority with the state, so all these privileges of all the residents from all over the India will be compromised and will create the nuisances only. So these are some issues related to the providing status to the state to Delhi. Moving on to the conclusion, what we can do, we can write some futuristic approach that we can establish the representative committee to study the implications, challenges and the benefits of granting full statehood. It shouldn't be in hurry, or it should not be like prolonged for so long. And second is about, we should do the transparent and inclusive public consultation to gather the opinion and the feedback of the residents of Delhi as well. Next is about, we can define the clear jurisdiction of the state government and LG and the central government, so that to minimize the conflicts amongst them. Okay, so this was the third question. Let's see the model answer. Starting with 239 AA, Balakrishnan committee, significance, issues, and finally way forward, and some write-up as a conclusion. So this was it from my side for today. Thank you and have a nice day, and keep writing.